The rain fell hard on the rooftop of an old cabin at the edge of the human settlement. It was late at night. Most people were asleep. But John was still awake, sitting alone by the small heater with a cup of hot tea in his hand. His old radio played soft music, the only sound in the silence. Then, he heard a knock-out. It was soft at first, then again, but a little louder. John stood up slowly, confused. No one ever came to his cabin, especially not at night. He walked to the door and opened it slightly, ready to close it fast if it was something dangerous. But what he saw made him freeze. Out there, in the pouring rain, stood a small alien child. She was shaking. Her thin clothes were soaked and clinging to her body. Her big glowing eyes looked up at him, full of fear. Her skin had a faint blue tint, and her long ears were folded down. "Please," she said, her voice weak and broken, "don't send me back." John didn't know what to say. She looked no older than 6 or 7. She had a torn cloth bag around her shoulder and bruises on her arms. The sight of her standing alone in the rain broke something inside him. He opened the door wider. "Come in," he said softly. She stepped in without looking back. Water dripped from her clothes onto the wooden floor. John gave her a towel, then helped her sit near the heater. Her small hands held the cup of tea he offered like it was the most precious thing in the world. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The child didn't answer. She just looked down, then whispered, "I don't remember." John frowned. "Where's your family?" She shook her head. "They sold me, but I ran away." He felt his stomach turn. He had heard rumors about alien slave markets, especially after the war. Some alien children were taken in by bad people and used for labor or worse. But seeing one like this, so real, so broken, made it feel different. He didn't press her anymore. That night, she fell asleep on the old couch wrapped in a warm blanket. John sat nearby, watching her breathe softly. He didn't sleep. He just stared at the fire and thought that the next morning, John made breakfast. When the child woke up, she looked confused, like she had forgotten where she was. "You're safe," he said with a small smile. "You don't have to go back," she nodded. Slowly. After breakfast, John took her outside and showed her the small garden, the tool shed, and the stream nearby. She followed him silently, but there was a spark of curiosity in her eyes. "Do you want to stay here for a while?" he asked. She looked at him, unsure, then nodded. He smiled. "Then I need to give you a name." She blinked. "How about Leary?" he said. "It means light in an old language." The child looked down, then whispered, "Leary." She said it again, louder this time. Then, for the first time, she smiled. From that moment, she was Leary, and John became something he never expected, a father. He didn't register her officially. If the system found her, they might take her away. So he told the local neighbors. She was a refugee orphan he had adopted during a supply mission. Most people believed him. Over the next few weeks, Leary changed. She stopped hiding under the table when someone knocked. She laughed when the chickens ran around her feet. She learned how to plant vegetables, fix small tools, and even ride a hover bike slowly on the dirt path. John saw something amazing in her. She was not just healing. She was growing. But one night, months later, as he was cleaning up dinner, he heard Leary crying in her sleep. He rushed to her room. She was shaking under her blanket, whispering words in a language he didn't understand. When he touched her shoulder, she jumped awake and hugged him tight. "They're looking for me," she whispered. "Who?" he asked. "My real family." "My mother." John felt his heart stop. Was it a dream? A memory? Or was someone really out there trying to find her? And if they were, would they take her away? He didn't sleep again that night. The calm life he had built with Leary, the peace, the laughter, the love, now hung by a thread, because somewhere out there, the past was knocking again. Just like Leary had that rainy night. And this time, it might not ask to come in. It might come to take her back. Asterisk. The wind carried the scent of spice and oil as John stepped into the crowded trading post with Leary beside him. The weekly market buzzed with life. Merchants shouted, hovercarts beeped, and the air shimmered with heat. John only came here once a month, and only when he needed supplies he couldn't grow himself. This time, he brought Leary with him for the first time. She clung to his hand, her eyes wide with curiosity and fear. Her blue skin caught some looks, but no one said anything. In this part of the outer zone, aliens were not rare. Refugees, traders, even workers from nearby mines mixed freely with humans. John gave her a soft squeeze on the hand. "Stay close," he said firmly, and she nodded. They moved through the stalls. Leary stopped often to look at shiny trinkets, strange fruits, and floating toys. John smiled quietly. For a moment, she looked like any other child, but then everything changed. John was paying for dried grains when he felt it, someone watching them. He turned, slow and calm, eyes scanning the crowd. That's when he saw him, a tall man in a dark brown coat, leaned against a pole, half hidden in the shade. His face was covered with a scarf, but his eyes were sharp. They were not looking at John. They were locked on Leary. John's heart tightened. He turned back and handed the merchant the credits quickly, then took Leary's hand again, this time tighter. "We're leaving," he whispered. Leary looked confused but followed without asking questions. That's how she had become, always. Reading his face, trusting his silence, they made their way through the outer stalls. John didn't look back. He didn't want to show fear, but he felt it crawling down his neck like ice. When they reached the hoverbike, John helped Leary up, then started the engine. It roared to life, and they rode away down the dusty road. But just before they disappeared into the trees, John looked into the side mirror. The stranger was there, standing on the edge of the market, unmoving. Still watching back at the cabin, John closed the gates and locked them. He checked the perimeter sensors twice. Leary watched him with worry in her eyes. Was someone bad following? "US?" she asked. John didn't answer right away. He knelt in front of her and placed his hands on her shoulders. "Do you remember anything new about your mother?" he asked gently. Leary looked down. "Just her eyes," she whispered. "They were like mine, but brighter. And she wore a silver pendant with a strange symbol." John sat back slowly. That small detail stirred something in his memory. A symbol, yes, he had seen it before. A few years ago, during the supply run near the outer zone detention centers. The emblem was from one of the high clans, alien nobility that had lost their land during the war. If Leary belonged to one of them. This was bigger than he thought. Later that evening, while Leary slept, John searched through old records on his private terminal. It took hours, but he finally found something. A missing child report, filed 7 years ago by an alien noblewoman named Valera. Her daughter had been kidnapped during a border conflict. The picture was blurry, but the child had blue skin, folded ears, and glowing eyes just like Leary. John leaned back, breathing hard. He stared at the screen. His hands trembled. If this Valera was really Leary's mother, and if she was searching for her after all these years, then that stranger at the market was no accident. He turned off the screen and walked to Leary's room. She was asleep, clutching a stuffed toy he had made for her. Her hair had grown longer, her cheeks fuller, her eyes peaceful. She was his daughter now, in every way that mattered. But someone else had called her daughter first. Someone with power, someone who might demand her back. Could he protect her from that? Would she even want to stay if her real mother appeared at the door? The next morning, John did not take her to the garden. Instead, he taught her how to hide. He showed her the forest path, the underground crawl space, and the emergency call beacon. Leary didn't ask questions. She simply listened, her little face serious and calm. Later, as they ate lunch, the cabin security alert chimed. A voice crackled through the speaker, female, calm, and clear. "This is Valera of House Amaranth. I am looking for my daughter, John." froze. Leary looked up at him with wide eyes, her spoon halfway to her mouth. The voice continued. She was taken from me 7 years ago. I believe she is with you. I only wish to speak with her. John stood up slowly and walked to the window. Outside, a sleek hovercraft rested just beyond the fence. A tall alien woman with glowing blue eyes stepped forward. Leary whispered behind him, "That's her." The girl who once cried outside his door now had someone else calling for her, but the choice ahead would change all their lives. Sunlight sifted through the trees in dappled patches as John and Leary stepped into the clearing behind their cabin. The air smelled of pine and earth. John moved carefully, keeping his voice low and calm. This clearing was their safe place. It had tall stones near the old well, and a ring of smooth rocks where they sometimes sat at night to watch the stars. Leary walked slowly to the circle and touched one of the stones with her small hand. John drew a deep breath and sat beside her on the nearest rock. Leary looked at him with serious eyes and asked in a quiet voice, "You want what I do?" John shook his head. He reached out and gently took her hand. "Leary, I love you more than anything. You are my daughter, even if I did not give birth to you." She blinked at his words. Her chest rose and fell slowly. "I thought you were waiting for my mother." John squeezed her hand. "I am waiting because I want to know who she is and what she wants. But your place is here with me, with us." Leary looked toward the cabin, then back at John. Her glowing eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I want to know. My mother too. But I do not want to lose you." John stood and hugged her strong. His arms circled her small body in a careful shield. When he held her, he felt her heartbeat soft and steady against his own chest. He realized then that this moment was part of something much bigger than fear or loss. They sat together for a long while. After some minutes, Leary asked, "How do I know you are really my father?" John glanced up at the sky. He saw clouds drifting like silent ships. He thought of his own father who had died before he was old enough to remember his face. He swallowed the ache and said, "Being a father is not only about blood. It is about care, trust, safe nights when you cry and mornings when you laugh together. I have done these things for you." Without hesitation, Leary's eyes filled and she nodded slowly. She glanced at the ground. "I felt safe with you from the first night I came here." John smiled softly and sighed. The words burned bright like a star in his chest. Reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small metal pendant. It was plain silver with a modest gem. "Your mother wore this," he said, lifting it between them so the light caught its edges. Leary's eyes widened as she recognized the mark carved on its back, that same symbol she had drawn when she slept last night before she woke crying. Her finger traced the lines of the symbol gently. "You remember this symbol?" she whispered, as if she feared the air might break it. John nodded. "I found it in old records. It is the crest of House Amaranth. I do not know what it stands for, but I know it matters to you and to her." Leary closed her eyes for a moment. Her breath trembled. "I want to meet her, but I am not ready to leave you." John brushed her hair back from her face. "You do not have to choose now." He picked up the pendant and held it in his hand. "This can wait until you are ready, until you feel strong enough to look her in the eyes and ask the questions that hurt." Leary opened her eyes. She looked into John's face and found his steady calm. She nodded again. "Okay," she said softly. They stood together in the clearing. Under an unfinished sky, Leary lifted the pendant and held it close to her heart. John watched her with love and fear and hope all mixed in. Then she looked up at him and asked, "How will I know when I'm ready?" John knelt before her. He looked her in the eyes and said, "When the fear becomes smaller than your own voice, when you feel brave enough to speak your truth, that is when you will know." Leary swallowed hard. Her lips trembled, but she held firm. "Then I will be ready soon." John rose to his feet and extended his hand to her. "Come, let us walk back. We will go slowly together." Hand in hand they moved back through the trees toward the cabin. Their shadows stretched long behind them, and above them the sky held a promise that whatever came next they would face it together. The night was heavy with silence as the wind blew through the trees around the cabin. Clouds covered the moon, and only the soft light of the porch lamp touched the ground. John sat in his chair near the window, his eyes fixed on the locked gate in the distance. His rifle leaned against the wall nearby, but he hoped he would not need it. Inside the cabin, Leary lay in her bed awake. Her fingers clutched the pendant her mother had left earlier that day. It still carried warmth, as if it remembered her touch. She closed her eyes and tried to picture her mother's face, but it kept changing in her mind. Suddenly a soft ping echoed through the room. The outer sensor had been triggered again. John stood fast but quiet. He picked up the rifle and stepped outside, boots making no sound on the wooden steps. The cold air touched his skin as he scanned the dark shapes beyond the trees. Then a voice came low and clear from the shadows. "I come alone, I only want to speak." John lowered his rifle slowly. The voice was calm and familiar, the same voice from the day before. Over the speaker at the gate, "Step forward slowly," John said firmly. A figure appeared under the trees. Her robe shimmered slightly in the low light, and her tall frame moved with grace. Her eyes glowed the same blue as Leary's, and her face looked both strong and tired. "My name is Valera," she said gently. "I am the mother of the child you shelter." John did not move for a moment. Then he nodded once and led her to the small bench outside the door. He kept the door open, just enough to see Leary's room in case anything. Valera sat and folded her hands in her lap. Her eyes never left John's. "She has grown strong here, I can see it," she said quietly. John did not reply right away. He studied her face looking for lies, but found only sorrow. "Why now?" he asked finally. "Why come after all these years?" Valera took a breath before speaking. "I searched every system, every border, every refugee list. I spent everything I had to find her. My clan fell after the war. We were scattered, hunted. I was captured for months, and only released when I gave up my land. I lost everything, but not my hope." John's eyes narrowed slightly. "She said she was sold." Valera closed her eyes. She was taken from me during a raid, sold by the ones who betrayed our house. I was too late by the time I broke free. I chased rumors from world to world, but the trail kept going cold until someone saw her here in your market." John looked away for a moment, thinking about the tall man who had watched them. That must have been one of her agents. "She does not remember much," John said quietly, "but she remembers feeling safe here." Valera's eyes softened. "I do not want to tear her apart. I only want to be part of her life if she allows me." From behind the door, Leary stepped out, barefoot and silent. She had heard every word. Her pendant swung slightly around her neck as she came forward. Vela stood slowly as their eyes met. "You are the voice I dreamed," Leary said softly. Valera stepped forward and knelt so they were at the same height. "I am your mother. My heart has called for you every night since you were taken." Leary looked down, unsure. Her hands gripped each other nervously. "I have a father now. He held me when I was sick. He taught me to fish and to laugh again." Valera nodded. "I saw it in your eyes. You have grown strong and kind because of him." Leary looked into her glowing eyes. "I want to know who you are, but I do not want to leave my home." "You do not have to," Valera whispered. "I will stay nearby if you wish. I will come only when you ask. I will not take you from the one who raised you with love." Leary turned to John. Her eyes asked the question. Her lips could not say. John nodded slowly. "It is your choice now. I trust you to decide what your heart wants." Leary turned back to Valera and reached out, touching her hand for the first time. The contact was small but powerful, a bridge between two worlds built on pain and hope. "You can visit," Leary said, "but I want to stay here. This is my home." Valera's face broke into a smile mixed with tears. "Then I will come as a guest and love you from the path you choose." That night, under the dark sky, a mother and daughter sat together near the fire, while a quiet father watched from a distance, knowing that love had many forms, and not all families were made by blood. Some were made by choice. The night was colder than usual. The wind howled softly through the trees, and the old cabin creaked like it was whispering stories of long-forgotten days. Inside, Leary sat near the window, her chin resting on her knees. Her eyes were on the small campfire outside the gate where a lone figure sat wrapped in silver robe as Valera. She had not left after their first meeting. Instead, she had chosen to sleep outside the cabin each night on the cold ground, waiting quietly like a statue carved from moonlight. John did not speak against it. He watched her from the shadows, keeping a careful distance. His heart was unsure. His mind was full of questions he did not know how to ask. Leary could not sleep. She walked to the door, slowly, her bare feet silent on the wooden floor. She opened it just enough to feel the cold air wrap around her skin. Valera looked up from the fire, but did not stand. "I thought you were sleeping," she said softly. "I was trying," Leary replied. For a few moments they stared at each other across the space that still felt too big for words. "Why are you outside?" Leary asked. "Why don't you stay in the village or in your ship?" Valera smiled faintly, her voice low and warm. "Because you are here, and I want to be near you if you call me." Leary stepped out slowly. Her hands held the blanket tighter around her shoulders. She walked to the gate and sat down just inside it. "I don't know what to feel," she said. "You're my mother, but I feel strange around you." Valera nodded, her face calm. "That is not wrong. You were hurt, and you healed without me. I am a memory returned too late. I don't want to break what you built. I only want to be near enough in case you ever need me." Leary's voice cracked just a little. "Why do you care so much now after so many years?" Valera's hand rested on the ground beside her, her eyes never leaving Leary's. "Because you are a piece of my soul. I gave birth to you. I felt your heart inside mine. I searched. Because even when I had nothing left, I still had the hope of finding you." Leary closed her eyes for a moment. "I don't want to leave Papa John," Valera smiled. "You don't have to. I see how he looks at you. He is more than just a man who found you. He is your anchor." The fire cracked between them, glowing softly inside the cabin. John stood watching through the window. He heard none of the words, but he saw everything. The stillness of Valera, the way Leary sat closer with each passing minute, the way her shoulders began to relax. He turned away and walked to the kitchen, his hands busy preparing warm tea. He poured 3 cups and stepped outside without a word. He handed one to Leary, one to Valera, then sat on the steps. Leary took a sip and smiled at him. "She said I can stay," she whispered. John nodded. "She is your mother," he said. "And now she is part of your story too." Valera looked at him, her eyes full of meaning. "You have given her something I could not, a chance to grow. Without fear. I do not come to take her back. I come to understand the person she became because of you." John's voice stayed quiet. "Then stay as long as she wants you here. But the day you try to own her will be the day I stand in your way." Valera nodded slowly. "That day will never come." Later that night, Leary brought out 2 extra blankets. She wrapped one around Valera and placed the other on the bench beside her. "If you sleep outside, then at least be warm," she said with a grin. Valera smiled wide, her heart glowing brighter than any fire. "Would you sit with me for a while?" she asked. Leary looked at John, who nodded. She stepped out of the gate for the first time since Valera arrived and sat beside her on the bench under the stars. They spoke softly for hours about the skies of Leary's birth world, about dreams, about growing up in a cabin surrounded by trees and chickens. When sleep finally pulled Leary's eyes closed, she leaned against Valera's side, breathing slow and deep. Valera wrapped an arm around her and held her daughter for the first time in years. John watched from the door, his heart heavy but full. In that moment he understood something deeply. He had not lost a daughter. He had gained another piece of her world, and maybe, just maybe, they could all find a way to share it together. The morning felt different. The wind was too still. The birds that usually sang around the cabin were quiet, the kind of quiet that made the skin crawl and the heart race. John stepped out of the cabin carrying a basket of tools, but stopped when he saw the gate hanging open, just a little. He always locked it, always double-checked it before sleeping. Looked around carefully, then stepped outside. His boots crunched softly on the gravel. path. The air felt thick, like something unseen was pressing down on everything. In the distance, Valera stood near the edge of the trees, her eyes scanning the sky. Leary was picking flowers near the garden, and humming to herself. John walked toward Valera and spoke low. "The gate was open this morning. I didn't leave it that way." Valera nodded slowly, her gaze sharp and steady. "I felt something last night, a presence in the trees. I thought it was only my mind playing tricks." John looked toward the woods. "I don't think we're alone anymore." That evening the sun dipped behind the hills faster than usual. Shadows grew longer and stretched like claws over the ground. Leary stayed close to the cabin, her laughter quieter than before. John installed an extra sensor near the back fence, while Valera kept watch from the roof. She had sharp eyes, better than most humans, and her hearing was trained for danger. When the last light faded, John checked the sensor feed. Something flashed on the screen, a shape for only a second, tall, thin, and moving faster than it should. He didn't say anything to Leary, but Valera saw his face and knew later. That night, Leary fell asleep curled between a pile of blankets. She was holding her stuffed animal and breathing softly. John and Valera sat by the fire inside their shared silence, growing heavier. "She's in danger, isn't she?" Valera asked. John nodded. "If someone tracked her here, they might be coming to take her, or worse, they might want revenge against your house through her." Valera closed her eyes. "She doesn't even know how special her bloodline is, the power she carries, the name she was born into." John looked straight at her. "I don't care about names, I care about her smile, her peace, her safety." Valera opened her mouth to speak, but stopped as a sharp beep came from the sensor unit. John rushed over. The screen showed a figure standing near the tree line again, but this time it didn't run, it just stood there, watching. John picked up his rifle and nodded to Valera. "Stay inside with her, I'll check it out." Valera shook her head. "We go together." They moved through the night with slow steps and fast hearts. The woods were dark but familiar. John knew every branch, every turn. When they reached the spot, there was nothing, just broken leaves and a faint trail leading deeper into the forest. John knelt and examined the ground. His fingers brushed a small object, a tracker, small and sleek, blinking faintly. He held it up for Valera to see. "They tagged her somehow, they're tracing her directly." Valera's face turned pale. Only someone from the inner houses could have access to that kind of tech. John's grip tightened. "Then they're not here. By chance they want her, and they're sending someone to take her." They followed the trail farther until it split near a small cliff. John's eyes scanned the ground and stopped on something that made his blood freeze, a boot print, too large to be his and too deep for someone walking alone. He turned to Valera. "They're not watching anymore. They're preparing to move." They rushed back to the cabin. Leary was still asleep, her chest rising and falling slowly. Valera checked her pulse, checked her skin, checked the pendant. Everything was fine, but John didn't rest. He stayed up all night watching the screens, watching the trees, watching the stars move overhead. The next day, he made a decision. He packed an emergency bag with supplies, coordinates, a new ID chip, and an old energy shield he had hidden since the war. Valera watched him from the door. "You want to run?" she asked. "No," he said. "I want to be ready when they attack, because they will." She stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. "We can't do this alone, not anymore. I have a contact in the resistance, someone who still owes my family a favor. He can help us hide her or fight if needed." John nodded. Call him. That night was quiet again, too quiet. Leary asked to sleep in John's room again. He held her close while outside. Valera kept watch, her eyes never closing. In the deep dark behind the trees, something moved again, but didn't come closer. They were testing the edge, waiting. The ground shook before the sun even rose. A low humming sound came from the west, cutting through the silence like a blade. John opened his eyes before the alarm went off. His body moved on instinct, reaching for the rifle leaning against the wall outside. Valera stood already armed, her long silver coat flowing behind her as she stared at the sky. A dark shape was coming fast, a black ship, without lights, slicing through the air like a predator. Leary woke up from the noise and ran to the door, her eyes wide with fear but not confusion. She knew this was not a dream, not a drill. "They're here," she whispered. John knelt in front of her and held her shoulders. "Listen to me. You stay close to your mother. You follow every word she says. Do not look back no matter what happens." Leary's lip trembled. "What about you?" John gave a small smile, one she had seen many times before, the smile he used when something dangerous was about to happen. "I'll be right behind you always." The black ship landed near the edge of the forest, kicking up dirt and breaking branches. The wind pushed hard against the cabin as the ramp opened, and 3 tall figures stepped out. They wore dark armor with no symbols. Their faces were hidden behind masks, and their steps made no sound. Valera's voice was like thunder as she stepped forward, her energy blade glowing in her hand. "This land is protected. Leave now or face the fire of House Amarith reborn." One of the masked soldiers stepped closer, his voice deep and hollow. "The girl carries a bloodline that does not belong in the dirt. She will be returned and raised as royalty." John stepped in front of Valera, his rifle raised steady and ready. "She belongs where she is loved, where she is safe. You want to take her? You'll have to get through me first." The soldier paused, then gave a signal. The other 2 moved fast, circling around the cabin, trying to flank. Valera shouted something in her native tongue, and the ground lit up with glowing lines. A protective barrier John had never seen before surged to life around the house. The first soldier rushed forward, swinging a blade made of burning plasma. John rolled aside, fired once, then again. The second shot hit armor, sparks flew. But the soldier kept coming. Valera blocked another strike from the side, her blade dancing through the air like light made solid. She moved with fury and grace, her eyes blazing with ancient fire. Inside the cabin, Leary hid in the emergency crawl space, clutching the pendant and whispering prayers in 2 languages. The walls shook above her, dust falling from the ceiling. Outside, John's shoulder slammed into a tree as the first soldier tackled him. He growled, pushed back, and fired straight into the chest plate. The shot hit hard and the soldier dropped, but the third soldier came from behind too fast. John turned just in time to block the blade with the butt of his rifle, sparks flying as metal clashed with energy. Valera screamed from the side, her blade piercing the second attacker's back. Her breathing was heavy, her arm cut, but her eyes never left Leary's hiding spot. The last soldier reached the cabin door just as Leary crawled out. He grabbed her arm tight, but she bit his wrist with all her strength and kicked hard. John's body crashed into the soldier a second later, knocking him off balance and sending both of them into the garden dirt. "You don't touch her," John growled, slamming his fist into the soldier's helmet. Again and again, until the mask cracked. Valera dragged Leary back behind the protective shield and placed her hand on her cheek. "You are safe now. Stay with me. Stay behind me." John stood slowly, his body bleeding, his arm shaking, but he raised the rifle once more. The last soldier rose, 2 masks, shattered face visible, full of rage. He charged. John fired. The soldier fell. The silence that followed felt louder than the battle itself. Wind moved again. Trees whispered like they had been holding their breath. Valera helped John to sit as Leary ran to his side, wrapping her arms around him tight. "You came back," she cried. "I said I would," he whispered. Hours later, the resistance ship landed. 2 agents stepped out, helped clean the area, and took away the attackers. Valera spoke with them quietly while Leary stayed by John's side, holding his hand like a lifeline. That night the stars returned and the sky was clear. Leary stood between Valera and John, a small smile on her lips. She looked up at them both. "I don't want to choose between you. I want both of you." Valera knelt beside her, and John placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to choose," Valera said softly. John nodded. "We're your family now, all of us." Leary looked at the stars above and whispered a quiet promise. "No one will ever take me away again." And in that moment, beneath a sky full of quiet light, the family finally became whole.